Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into something called game theory. And trust me, it's this amazing framework that really gets to the heart of why we make the choices we do. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke, right? But believe it or not, there's a single idea that connects international politics, baking cookies, and yeah, even impalas grooming each other.
So when we say game theory, don't think about Monopoly or chess. We're talking about any situation, literally any social interaction, where what happens to you depends on what someone else decides to do. It's the science of strategy, and it's used by everyone, from economists to biologists.
All right, to really wrap our heads around this, we're going to look at probably the most famous example in all of game theory. It's called the prisoner's dilemma.
So, meet Wanda and Fred. They're partners in crime, but they just got caught. The cops have them dead to rights on a minor charge, enough for 2 years in prison. But the DA? Well, the DA wants a bigger conviction. So they put Wanda and Fred in separate rooms and offer each of them a deal.
Okay, so here's the deal they're offered. They can't talk to each other, right? Total isolation. And let's just say there's no honor among thieves here. They don't have any deep loyalty. They each have to make a choice, completely on their own. The big question is, what's the smart move?
So let's break this down. Put yourself in Wanda's shoes for a second. Let's say Fred decides to keep his mouth shut. What should she do? Well, if she confesses, she gets to walk free instead of serving 2 years. Pretty good deal. Okay, but what if Fred sings like a canary and confesses? Well, her best move is still to confess because serving 5 years is way better than serving 10.
You see what's happening here? No matter what Fred does, Wanda's best move is to confess. And the same logic applies to Fred. So the most logical, rational choice for both of them is to betray the other one. That's what's called the Nash equilibrium. It's the point where neither person can improve their situation by changing their own strategy. But here's the crazy part, the real kicker. Because they both act in their own self-interest, they both end up with 5 years when they could have cooperated and only gotten 2 years each.
Kind of grim, right? It seems like betrayal is just the logical outcome. But what if this isn't a one-off deal? What happens if this isn't the end of the story? What if the game keeps going?
Yeah. I mean, if you know you're going to have to deal with this person again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, suddenly stabbing them in the back for a short-term gain might not seem so smart, huh? Your reputation starts to matter.
And that's the real game changer. In a one-shot deal, the incentive is to be selfish, to defect. But when you play the game over and over, the whole equation flips. Now the incentive is to cooperate. The goal isn't just to win this one round, it's to build trust so you can keep winning together in the future. Suddenly, cooperation isn't just nice, it's smart.
Okay, so if cooperation is the way to go in the long run, how do you actually get there? What's the best way to play the game to make sure you come out on top over time?
Well, back in 1980, a political scientist named Robert Axelrod had that exact same question. So he did something really cool. He set up a computer tournament. He invited experts from all over to submit strategies, basically little computer programs. They would play the prisoner's dilemma against each other again and again for 200 rounds. The goal was simple: which strategy would rack up the best score?
So you had all these super complex, tricky strategies going head-to-head, and you know what won? One of the absolute simplest ones. It was called tit for tat, and its rules were incredibly easy. Step 1, start by cooperating. Step 2, after that, just do whatever your opponent did on the last move. That's it. Simple as that.
So Axelrod looked closer and realized that tit for tat and all the other successful strategies had 4 things in common. First, they were nice. They never betrayed anyone first. Second, they were retaliatory. You cross them once, they'll cross you right back. They weren't pushovers. Third, they were forgiving. They didn't hold a grudge. If the other player started cooperating again, so would they. And finally, they were clear. Their strategy was so simple that their opponent could easily figure it out, which made it easy for them to fall into a pattern of cooperation.
So, tit for tat is this amazing blueprint for how cooperation can just emerge, even when people are looking out for themselves. But that's all about competition. What about when we're not rivals? What about when we're actually on the same team? And that brings us to the whole other side of game theory. See, not all games are about winning and losing. In what are called cooperative games, everybody has already agreed to work together. The real challenge isn't about how to win. It's about how to be fair. How do you split the rewards when you've all contributed?
The big idea here is something called the Shapley value. It sounds kind of technical, but it's really just a clever way to figure out a fair way to slice the pie, based on what each person uniquely brings to the table.
Okay, I know. A clever way to figure out sounds a little intimidating, so let's make it super simple. Remember those cookies I mentioned at the very beginning? Let's go back to that.
All right, let's say you're baking on your own. You're pretty good. You can churn out 10 cookies in an hour.
Now your friend joins in, and they're a bit of a pro. They can make 20 cookies an hour all by themselves.
But here's where it gets interesting. When you two work together, something amazing happens. You create a little assembly line, you get in a rhythm, and you end up making 40 cookies an hour. Now wait a minute. 10 plus 20 is 30, so you've created an extra 10 cookies just by collaborating. That's the magic of teamwork. So if you sell them for $1 each, how do you split that $40 in a way that's truly fair?
This is where the Shapley value comes in. It says the fair split is $15 for you and $25 for your friend. And here's the beautiful logic behind it. First, you each get paid for your baseline contribution, the cookies you would have made anyway. So that's $10 for you, $20 for your friend. That leaves that extra $10, right? The bonus value you created together. The fairest thing to do is split that bonus 50-50. So you get your base $10 plus $5 from the bonus for a total of $15. And your friend gets their base $20 plus that same $5 bonus for a total of $25. Everybody gets rewarded for their individual effort and their contribution to the team.
So, when you boil it all down, game theory really gives us these two incredible ways of looking at the world. On one hand, you have competitive games. That's where we learn about things like the Nash equilibrium, which is all about how to be smart. On the other hand, you have cooperative games, and that's where we learn about the Shapley value, which is all about how to be fair.
And that really leads to the biggest idea of all. It's easy to think that the game, the situation we're in, dictates our choices. And in the short term, maybe it does. But over the long run, the strategies we choose, whether we choose to be competitive or cooperative, nice or nasty, those choices actually start to shape the environment around us. They change the rules of the game itself. So in the end, the game doesn't just play us. We are the ones who decide how the game is played. And that, right there, is a choice that's worth thinking about long after this is over.